I want to truly know you. I want to truly know you, and you to know me too. I want you to know me, and I want to honor you. Everything I do, with everything I do, and when I stand before you on that day, I pray you stay. I know you. Keep me on the way that I should go. I don't want my ways to displease you. Keep me on the path that is straight. Keep my heart faithful and true. I want to live my life to honor you. And I want to stand before you and here I know you. I know you. I know you. When I'm done my faithful servant. I know you. I know you, my true and spotless bride. I know you. I know you, my beloved one. I know you.
You alone are my hiding place. You alone are my only refuge in the storm. You alone are my hiding place. You alone are my only refuge in the storm. You alone can bring the calm. You alone are my hiding place. You alone are my only refuge in the storm. You alone bring the calm. Well, as every ocean and sea, every hill and every valley, every mountain and tree of me, He alone is the shelter for me. And from the east and to the west and the north to the south, my soul is truly blessed every time in the boat you see. He's the only true comfort for me. You alone are my hiding place. You alone are my only refuge in the storm. You alone can bring the calm. Yes, you alone can bring the calm. You alone are my hiding place. You alone are my only refuge in the storm. You alone can bring the calm. Now I'm no longer can I walk. I know the Lord God will carry me to this place of solitude, His holy sanctuary. You see, He's the only true refuge for me. my trials and comfort in my pain. You got me peace in the eye of a hurricane. I'm gonna magnify your name. You alone are my hiding place. You alone are my only refuge in the storm. You alone can bring me home. Yes, you alone can bring me home. You alone are my hiding place. You alone are my only refuge in the storm. You alone can bring me home. Yes, you alone can bring me home. So I will sing your songs of praise and acknowledge all your ways and glorify you in every way. Sing your songs of praise and acknowledge all your ways and glorify you in every day. Sing your songs of praise and acknowledge all your ways and glorify you in every way. Sing your songs of praise and acknowledge all your ways and glorify you in every way. You alone are my hiding place. You alone are my only refuge in the storm. You alone can bring us down. You alone can bring me down. You alone are my hiding place. You alone are my only.
If I do the wish I would, she's going to do it. Okay. Continue on.
burn and throw it in a fire, in a fire, in a fire. Fight like a warrior. Today, live like you wanna. Let yesterday burn and throw it in a fire, in a fire, in a fire. Live like a warrior. Today, live like you wanna. Let yesterday burn and throw it in a fire, in a fire, in a fire. Fight like a warrior. Today, live like you wanna. Let yesterday burn and throw it in a fire, in a fire, in a fire. Live like a warrior. Tahilam, Kuf Mem. Lam not say, Miss Morley that from the wicked man, Lord set me free from the violent people. Please protect me. Those who plot evil in their heart, every day they gather for the wars they start. They sharpen their tongue like some kind of viper. Under their lips is the venom of a spider. Guard me, Lord, from wicked hands. Protect me, please, from the violent man. To trip up my steps is what they hope. The arrogant hide a snare for me. With ropes all along my footpath, they spread the net. For me, their traps are always set. To Hashem, I said, you're the God for me. Hashem, lend a ear to the sound of my plea. My saving strength, Hashem, my Lord. You sheltered my head on the day of war. Lord, don't give the wicked man what he desires. Don't raise him higher in the way he conspires. Bury the head of those who seek my defeat with their own lips deceit. Let burning coals descend upon them. May they fall in fire pits, never rise again. Don't build up the slanderous violent man. May he be trapped by his evil, overthrown from the land. I know that the Lord will execute justice for the poor and the destitute. Ah, tzadikim yodulish mecha, eshobu yisharim espanecha.
Blessed are you, Adonai, giver of the Torah. We're going to read our Torah portion from Exodus chapter 30 this morning, starting in verse 1. You are to make an altar of acacia wood for burning incense. It is to be square, 1 cubit in length, 1 cubit wide, and 2 cubits high. The horns must be of one piece with it. You are to overlay it with pure gold on top, all around the sides and over the horns. Also, you are to make a crown of gold for it all around. Make 2 golden rings for it under the crown on the 2 sides, and they will be holders for poles to carry it. Make the poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold. You are to set it in front of the curtain that is in front of the ark of the testimony, in front of the atonement cover that is over the testimony, where I will meet with you. Aaron must burn sweet spices of incense there every morning. When he attends to the lamps, he is to burn it. Also, when Aaron keeps the lamps lit at dusk, he must burn it. There must be incense continually before Adonai throughout your generations. You must not offer up unauthorized incense on it, nor should any burnt offering or grain offering be there, nor should you pour any drink offering there. Aaron is to make atonement upon the horns once a year with the blood of the sin offering throughout your generations. It is most holy to Adonai.
Vayike olam natabetikenu, Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah. Amen.
Blessed are you, Adonai our God, King of the universe, who gave us the Torah of truth and planted eternal life within us. Blessed are you, Adonai, giver of the Torah.
HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai Be'yad Moshe. And this is the Torah that Moses placed before the children of Israel at the command of Adonai through Moses' hand.
So today is a special day. From many years ago, my children, this week we celebrate a special occasion of the deliverance for the Jewish people. This story is one of the 5 Megillot, or scrolls, which only are read at certain times of the year. The story of Esther is always read for Purim, the 14th of Adar, just like the Song of Songs is read at the end of Passover. Ruth is read at Shavuot, Lamentations corresponds to the 9th of Av, and Ecclesiastes is read on the Sabbath of Sukkot. Before we read Esther's story, there are a few rules to this story you must know. Listen closely to the names in the story, because 2 names are especially important. When we hear the name Mordecai, we say, yay!
Yay!
And when we hear the name Haman, we say boo. And there's one place in the story where we say, oy vey. I wonder if you will hear it. Let's find out more about why Bnei Israel was in Babylon in the first place. In the first book of Samuel, around 1000 BC, we read how Samuel said to King Saul, "Thus says Adonai Tzavayot, I remember what Amalek did to Israel, how he set himself against him on the way while he was coming out of Egypt. Now, go and strike down Amalek and put all he has under the ban of destruction." But Saul spared Agag, as well as the best of the livestock, not willing to utterly destroy them. Then, in about 740 BC, Isaiah said to Hezekiah, "Hear the word of Adonai. Behold, days are coming when everything in your house will be carried away to Babylon. Nothing will be left, says Adonai. Moreover, your descendants will be taken away and will become eunuchs in the palace of the king of Babylon." In about 586 BC, King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon came to Jerusalem and besieged it. He took youths without any defect, handsome, perfect, proficient in wisdom, knowledgeable, intelligent, capable of serving in the king's palace, where they learned the literature and the language of the Chaldeans. Now among them were Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
By the rivers of Babylon, here we sit and weep, remembering days in Zion, singing the Lord's song. Bring us back. Bring us back. How can we sing in a foreign land? Oh, bring us back. On the willows we hung our harps, captives wishing to be free. They ask us to sing with gladness the songs of Zion. Bring us back. Bring us back. How can we sing in
Beautiful job, kids. Okay, so we are at the Persian king's banquet. About 100 years after the Babylonians invaded Judah, King Ahasuerus gave a banquet for all the military leaders of Persia and Media. He displayed the vast wealth of his kingdom and the splendor and glory of his majesty for 180 days. In addition, Queen Vashti held a banquet for the women in the royal palace. On the seventh day, when the heart of the king was merry from the wine, he commanded Queen Vashti to come wearing the royal crown. He wanted to show off her beauty, for she was very attractive. But Queen Vashti refused to come at the king's command, and he became furious and burned with anger. So the king consulted with the 7 princes of Persia and Media and asked them, by law, what is to be done with Queen Vashti for failing to obey the command of King Ahasuerus? Then Memucan answered, Queen Vashti has wronged not only the king, but also all the princes and people, for the queen's conduct will go out to all the women, making their husbands contemptible in their eyes, by saying, King Ahasuerus commanded Queen Vashti to be brought before him, but she would not come. This very day, the noble women of Persia and Media will respond similarly to all the king's princes. There will be no end to the contempt and anger. If it pleases the king, let a royal commandment go forth, which cannot be repealed, that Vashti may not come into the presence of King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal status to another who is more worthy than she. Then the king's edict will be proclaimed throughout all this vast kingdom. All the wives will give their husbands honor. So the king sent letters throughout all the royal provinces, saying that every man should be in charge of his own household. When King Ahasuerus' anger subsided, he remembered Vashti and what had been decreed against her. Then the king's servant said, let us bring all the beautiful young virgins to the palace and give them beauty treatments. Then let the young women who please the king become queen instead of Vashti. This advice pleased the king, and he acted accordingly. Mordecai. Meanwhile, there was a Jewish man in the Shushan palace whose name was Mordecai, a Benjamite. Related to the Jerusalem captives that had been carried away by King Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. Mordecai had raised Hadassah, that is Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. The girl was attractive and had a beautiful figure. When her father and mother died, Mordecai took her to him as his own daughter. After the king's order became known, many young women, including Esther, were taken under the supervision of Hegai, guardian of the women. Esther found favor with Hegai, so he quickly arranged her beauty treatments and provided her special food. Then he moved her and her maids to the best place in the women's house. Esther had not disclosed to her people where she was coming from or her lineage, because Mordecai had commanded her not to make them known. Every day, Mordecai walked in front of the women's courtyard to find out how Esther was and what might happen to her. When the turn came for Esther to go to the king, she did not ask for anything except what Hegai, the king's eunuch, advised. Esther won favor in the eyes of all who saw her, and the king loved Esther more than all the other women. So he placed the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. In those days, while Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate, 2 of the king's eunuchs who guarded the doorway became angry and conspired to assassinate King Ahasuerus. But Mordecai found out about the plot and told it to Queen Esther. Esther informed the king in Mordecai's name. When the matter was investigated and found to be so, they were both hanged on the gallows. It was then written in the book of Chronicles in the king's presence. My children, do you remember when Adonai told King Saul to destroy all the Agagites? Well, this is why. Sometime later, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, elevating him and setting his chair above all the officials who were with him. All the king's servants who were at the king's gate bowed down and paid honor to Haman. for the king had commanded it. But Mordecai
Yay!
would not bow down or pay him honor. When Haman,
Boo!
the Agagite, saw that Mordecai,
Yay!
the Jew, was not bowing down or paying him honor, Haman
Boo!
was filled with rage. But he didn't want to lay hands on Mordecai.
Yay!
Not alone, because Haman
Boo!
decided to destroy all the Jews who were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus. Haman
Boo!
said to King Ahasuerus, "There is a certain people in your kingdom who do not obey the king's laws. It is not in the king's interest to tolerate them. If it pleases the king, let an edict be written to destroy them." The king took his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman,
Boo!
enemy of the Jews. The king said to Haman, "The people are yours. Do with them as you please." Dispatches were sent by couriers into all the king's provinces, stating to destroy, slay, and annihilate all the Jews, from the youth to the elderly, both the little children and the women, on a single day, the 13th day of the 12th month, the month of Adar, and to plunder their possessions. The edict was issued in the palace of Shushan, and the king and Haman
Boo!
sat down to drink. But the city of Shushan was dumbfounded when Mordecai learned all that was done. He tore his clothes, put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out into the middle of the city, crying out in a loud and bitter voice, "Oy vey!" In each and every province where the king's edict and law came, there was great mourning among the Jews, with fasting and weeping and wailing. Many put on sackcloth and ashes. When Esther's maids and eunuchs came and told her, the queen was greatly distressed. Esther and Mordecai gave Esther a written copy of the decree, which had been distributed in Shushan for their annihilation, and explained it to her. He instructed her to go into the king, to go beg for his favor and plead before him on behalf of her people. Then Esther spoke to Mordecai. Everyone fully understands that for anyone, man or woman, who approaches the king without being summoned, he has one law, that he be put to death, unless the king extends his golden scepter, permitting him to live. But I have not been summoned to come before the king for 30 days. Mordecai replied to Esther with his answer, "Do not think in your soul that you will escape in the king's household more than all the Jews. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. Who knows whether you have attained royal status for such a time as this?" Esther
Who am I that I should find myself right here, right now? Who am I to try to save these lives some way, somehow? Can it be that you chose me, a girl who no one knew? So afraid, unsure, not knowing what to say, what to do.
For such a time as this, for such a time as this, are you our help? Are you our hope at such a time as this? not knowing what will be.
If I should go, please tell my people I've one plea. Pray for me for such a time as this. For such a time as this. Is there a help? Is there a hope at such a time as this? Is there before me now a chance I dare not miss? Could it be I have come to the kingdom for such a time as this?
Will you find mercy there?
Or will I perish? Who can say? Still at this time we cannot keep silent. We will stand. We will pray. How could it be that you would choose someone like me? I'll go and I must be now that I've heard this, I can see nothing matters more to me. We have come to the kingdom for such a time as this. What is before us now? A chance we dare not miss. Could it be we have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? We have come to the kingdom for such a time as this.
You got one blessed congregation, guys. Okay. Esther replied to Mordecai, "Go, gather together all the Jews who are in Shushan and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will fast in the same way. Afterwards, I will go in to the king. Even though it is not according to law, if I perish, I perish." So Mordecai left and did all that Esther commanded him. On the 3rd day, there it is again, Esther put on her royal apparel and stood in front of the king's hall. The king was sitting on his royal throne in the hall facing the entrance. When the king saw Queen Esther standing in the courtyard, she found favor in his eyes. So the king held out to Esther the golden scepter in his hand. And Esther approached and touched the top of his scepter. Then said the king to her, "What is it, Queen Esther?" "Whatever you request, even as much as half the kingdom, it will be given to you." So Esther said, "If it pleases the king, let the king and Haman come come this day to the banquet that I have prepared for him. The king replied, bring Haman quickly, so that we may do what Esther has said. Then, as they were drinking wine, the king said to Esther, what is your request? It will be granted to you. Whatever you request, even as much as half the kingdom, it will be fulfilled. Esther answered and said, my request is this. If I have found favor in the king's eyes, and if it pleases the king to grant my petition and my request, then let the king and Haman come tomorrow and to the banquet that I will prepare for you, and then I will do as the king requests. Haman went out that day happy and in good spirits. However, when Haman saw Mordecai at the king's gate, and he did not rise or tremble before him, Haman was filled with rage against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman restrained himself and went home. Haman boasted to his family and friends about his vast wealth, his many sons, how the king had promoted him and exalted him above all the other officials and servants of the king. Haman added, and that's not all. Queen Esther invited only me to accompany the king to a banquet that she prepared. And she has also invited me along with the king tomorrow. Yet all this does not satisfy me as long as I see Mordecai, the Jew, sitting at the king's gate. Then Zeresh, his wife, and all his friends said to him, let them set up a gallows 50 cubits high, and in the morning ask the king to have Mordecai hanged on it. Then go happily with the king to the banquet. This idea delighted Haman. And he ordered the gallows to be built. That night, after Queen Esther's first banquet, sleep deserted the king. So he ordered the book of the Chronicles, the record of his reign, be brought and read. It was recorded there that Mordecai had revealed 2 of the king's eunuchs had conspired to kill King Ahasuerus. The king asked, what honor or recognition has been shown to Mordecai for this? The king's servant replied, nothing has been done for him. The king said, who is in the courtyard? Now, Haman had just come into the outer court of the king's palace to speak to the king about hanging Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. The king's servant answered, Haman is standing in the courtyard. The king said, let him come in. When Haman entered, the king asked him, what should be done for a man whom the king desires to honor? Now, Haman thought to himself, whom would the king desire to honor rather than me? So Haman replied, for the man whom the king desires to honor, let them bring a royal robe that the king has worn, and a horse on which the king has ridden, one with a royal crest placed on his head. Then let one of the king's most noble princes clothe the man and parade him on horseback through the city streets, proclaiming, this is what is done for a man the king desires to honor. The king said to Haman, go quickly, take the robe and the horse, just as you suggested, for Mordecai, the Jew who sits at the king's gate. Do not neglect anything that you recommended. So Haman took the robe and the horse, robed Mordecai, and paraded him through the city streets, proclaiming, this is what is done for the man whom the king desires to honor. Afterwards, Mordecai returned to the king's gates, but Haman rushed to his home, grief-stricken and with his head covered. Haman recounted to his wife, Zeresh, and all his friends everything that had happened to him. His advisors and his wife, Zeresh, said to him, "Since Mordecai, before whom you began your downfall, is of Jewish descent, you won't be able to stand against him. In fact, you will certainly fall before him." While they were still talking with him, the king's eunuchs came and hurried Haman along to the banquet Esther had prepared. So the king and Haman came to dine with Queen Esther. And as they were drinking wine on the second day, the king again asked Esther, "Whatever you request, even as much as half the kingdom, it will be given to you." So Queen Esther answered, "If I have found favor in the eyes of the king, if it pleases the king, grant me my life. This is my petition. Spare the life of my people. This is my request. For we have been sold, I and my people, for destruction, slaughter, and annihilation." King Ahasuerus responded to Queen Esther, "Who is he? Where is the man that presumed to do this?" Esther replied, "The man, the adversary and foe, is this wicked Haman." Then Haman was terrified before the king and queen. Enraged, the king got up from the banquet of wine and withdrew to the palace garden. But Haman stayed behind to plead with Queen Esther for his life, for he realized that the king had determined a catastrophic end for him. When the king returned from the palace garden to the banquet hall, Haman was falling on the same couch where Esther was seated. The king exclaimed, "Will he also assault the queen while she is with me in the palace?" As soon as these words came out of the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Harbona, one of the eunuchs attending the king, said, "Look, a gallows 50 cubits high is standing next to Haman's house. Haman made it himself for Mordecai, who spoke good on behalf of the king." The king said, "Hang him on it." So they hanged Haman on the gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. And the king's rage subsided. That same day, King Ahasuerus gave Queen Esther the estate of Haman. Then Mordecai came into the presence of the king, for Esther revealed how he was related to her. The king took off his signet ring, which he had taken back from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. Esther then appointed Mordecai over Haman's estate. Esther again pleaded with the king, falling at his feet, weeping. She pleaded with him to stop the evil of Haman, the Agagite, his plan that he had devised against the Jews. Then the king extended the golden scepter to Esther, and she rose and stood before the king. She said, "If it pleases the king, if I have found favor before him, and if it seems right to the king, if I am pleasing in his eyes, let an edict be written, rescinding the dispatches devised by Haman, which he wrote to destroy all the Jews who are throughout the king's provinces. For how can I endure seeing the disaster that will fall on my people? How can I bear to see the destruction of my relatives?" King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and Mordecai, "I have decided to give Haman's estate to Esther, and I had him hanged on the gallows because he stretched out his hand against the Jews. Now, write in the king's name, on behalf of the Jews, what seems good to you, and seal it with the king's signet ring. For a decree that is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's ring cannot be revoked." So Mordecai wrote a decree sealed with the king's ring to grant the right for Jews in every city to assemble themselves and to protect themselves, to destroy, kill, annihilate any army of people or province that might attack them and their women and children, and to plunder their possessions. A copy of the written edict was distributed to every province and made known to the peoples of every nobility, so that the Jews would be ready on the day to avenge themselves on their enemies. Throughout every province and throughout every city, wherever the king's edict and his law went, the Jews had gladness and joy, banquets and holidays. Many peoples of the land became Jews because the fear of the Jews had overcome them. No one was able to stand against them, for fear had fallen on all the peoples. Even all the administrators of the provinces, the officers, the governors, those doing business for the king, helped the Jews, for the dread of Mordecai had fallen on them. Mordecai was prominent at the palace, and his fame spread throughout all the provinces. The man Mordecai was growing ever more powerful. The Jews struck down all their enemies with the sword, killing and destroying, and they did whatever they wished to those who hated them. In the citadel at Shushan, the Jews killed and destroyed 500 people, including the 10 sons of Haman. In the rest of the provinces, they slew 75,000 of their enemies. Yeah. Mordecai recorded these events, and he sent letters to all the Jews, urging them to celebrate the 14th of Adar every year, as the days when the Jews got relief from their enemies, and as the month when their sorrow was turned to joy and their mourning into celebration. These were to be the days of feasting, celebration, and sending presents of food to one another and giving gifts to the poor. So the Jews agreed to continue the commemoration this day in every generation by every family. These days of Purim should not fail from among the Jews, nor their remembrance perish from their descendants.
Thank you guys so much for coming to our musical, Such As It Was. And I hope you guys had as much fun as we did doing it for you. We look forward to doing this again next year. And if you guys have any special talents, like the Coonies over here who did this most excellent song. Did you guys love that? Isn't that beautiful? Yeah, that wasn't a soundtrack. That was the Coonies. That is so good. If you guys have any awesome special talents like that, please contribute because, man, that's fun, right? So anyway, we are going to close in a word of prayer. Abba, thank you so much for the way that you have blessed us and brought us through all of last year, all of this year, the icy, crazy week, and everything that comes with it, as well as all of the victories and the celebrations. Lord, we thank you that we have an opportunity to be reminded of a time in our history, our people's history, where the situation was dire. It looked like there was no escape and no way out. And Lord, you brought us through because of the courage of the people that you put into such a time as this. Lord, right now, we are those people for such a time as this. It is no accident that each of us are in this room or on this planet at this time. Give each of us the courage to stand up, rise up to the occasion. Let Ruach HaKodesh fill us and give us the right words to say at the right time to the right person so that your name can be spread throughout the earth, so that your spirit would have freedom to reign. And God, we would be the ones to bring light to the darkness. We ask for all of these things in the name of Yeshua. Amen. All right. We're not quite good. Go ahead.
Okay, I have one announcement for you guys, real quick. If anybody in this room is interested in learning how to dance the way we dance up here, make plans to start sticking around after Shabbat service. Because starting next Saturday, we're going to start teaching the dances for the following week, right here in this room after service. So if you want to learn how we dance, make plans to stick around. We want to have more people dancing with us, so we hope to join us for that.
Yes.
Open to anybody of any age, by the way.
Yes. And so we do a Saturday afternoon practice, and we do a Thursday night practice for you. And we have the videos on a Google Drive that you can access throughout the week. You have no excuse if you have 2 feet, as long as you're not both left. Right, which mine are. And I have the excuse that I can hide behind this, but the rest of you don't have that excuse. I'm so sorry. So please do join us and build and grow together as a community for our dance group. Now comes the part that I know you've all been waiting for, the Hamantashen. Yes? Okay, so Hamantashen cookies and coffee are out there. Thank you guys for joining with us today.